right, everyone. Welcome back to Dose of Reality. It's November 2nd, 2022, and we have a good one here for you tonight. So, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do My Awakening, episode number 80. And before I introduce my guest, I will just tell you guys briefly what that is. And let me just turn my camera on for everybody here. And then we will get rolling. So, for those that don't know, I have a series called My Awakening, where what I do is I like to interview people, not on just a topic-specific interview, but interview people and get their whole story from the beginning up until now. All the stuff that they've been through on their truth journey and even before their truth journey started. And I pick a variety of people. A lot of people you guys will know some people have a huge following. Some people only have a couple hundred subscribers. Zetetic Warrior, who I think is a brilliant guy, who I have today, he's got like 30 subscribers on his channel. So it's not about the size of the channel or anything like that. In fact, I actually like interviewing a lot of people that, I know are pretty brilliant, are pretty interesting, and maybe try and get them to break the ice a little bit and come out, and maybe a lot of them stop making content, etc., etc. We've seen that with a lot of people too. So we're going to interview Zetetic Warrior today. Let me just tell everybody the plan, though. We are multi-streaming. We're on the Brian Staveley 3 channel on YouTube. We are on Rockfin. We are on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. I think my Telegram might even be streaming. I'm not sure, so don't hold me to that. And it'll be uploaded later to Odyssey. The thing is, though, we're going all in tonight. We're going to talk about stuff that is definitely not YouTube friendly. But we will leave this whole live stream on YouTube. But as soon as the video is done, I am going to delete it off YouTube. So that means if you don't get here from the beginning and you're behind, and you see the stream disappear before you can finish it, it's because you're behind and we deleted it. All you have to do is go to one of the other platforms. Yes, there will be, we got Rockfin, which people subscribe for, but there's also Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. They're all free. I left all the links below the YouTube video. So go ahead and grab one of those links now, everybody. And then, hey, before we get started, let me introduce my guest. Then we'll give a shout out. Then we'll get started. Yo, what should I call you? Can I call you Z? I'd rather call you Z rather than your first name, because your first name's kind of common. If I just call you Z all the time, we'll know who we're talking about. Does that work for you?
Yeah, dude. I like that. Z's good.
Yeah, Z's good, man. So thank you for coming on, man. I really been looking forward to this for a little while, and we kind of planned it a little while ago. I said after Flattoberfest, but before California, we would get it in, and here we are.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me on, dude. This is something that's really exciting for me, man. Shout out to everybody out there. I can't see the chat, so when I go back and watch this, I'll certainly review all the chats and everything, but I won't be able to see the chats during the show.
That's cool, and
But yeah, Brian,
Go ahead.
it's awesome to be on, dude. The first time I came across you ever, you were doing the My Awakening interview for Sage of Quay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
here I am here. It came full circle, man. The first time I ever saw you was with his, man, and I was just like, wow, dude. And that was the first time I ever heard the any theories about 9/11 that were pretty unique, I remember that moment, and now here we are, dude. So it's
Yeah.
really cool, and I really appreciate being on, dude.
And we're gonna delete this motherfucker from YouTube, so we can hammer that 9/11 shit too if you want. We could go anywhere. This is gonna be fantastic.
Nice, dude. Yeah, it's funny because 9/11 was my first foray into truth.
Yeah, me too.
I remember. I've been thinking about this leading
Yeah.
up. I remember it was a few years after 9/11. It might have been like 2004. And there was a book, I forget the guy's name. It might have been like Bergen, his last name. And I remember I was reading the book, and it talked about, and it was the first time I heard it, that bin Laden had been CIA trained, right? Like that whole story about bin Laden. Who knows if the guy even existed, right?
Yeah.
But that was my first foray into it. I said, wait a second, they trained him and he's living in a cave. And then the reporter came, found him in a cave, and did an interview with him. And I remember thinking, A reporter found them in a cave, right? So that was my first little step into truth. So yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I definitely want to get into 9/11, bro.
All right, cool.
Definitely.
All right, let's go. Let's give a shout out, and then we'll start from the very beginning, childhood, and we'll get moving forward. Cool.
Yeah, man. Let's
All
do it.
right, cool. So over on Facebook, let's see. I can look on my phone. It's actually easy to see who's here because it shows me. Sean Alke, Christine Vincent, Andy Morris, Laurel Chamberlain, Jesse from Hingham. Okay. Let's go over to Twitch. Natalie Renka. Over on Rockfin, we got Matt Prince, Flat Earth Cat. Yeah, there's quite a few Flat Earth Cats up in here tonight, I'm sure. All right, and over on YouTube, Lucky Haskins, Sufinelli, National Memorial Gardens, Cleveland Steve, Chicago Artist, New Hampshire Guy, Neo Theon, Falling Knife, Boston Guy 51, BLB Sue Much Jake, whatever that means, Robert Owens, GT 1982 Mustang, Tommy Tell the Truth, who's on vacation, not retirement, Rebecca Ringler, Christopher Fitz, it jumped on me, David Knight, Speedy Lee, Maki Rizzo. All right, dude, let's just get it rolling. I think we got just about everybody. So, where I usually start these interviews is I like to ask people what it was like for them, as a kid. Mostly, we can kind of refer to what it was like in elementary school, junior high. Did you hate it? Did you like it? Were you social? Did you not be able to pay attention because you knew it was bullshit? Like we can go a lot of directions with it. So, what was school like for you?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah, school for me was pretty normal. I was that kind of kid where, you know, um I never was like a straight A kid, but I was like A's and B's, a few C's here. I never did homework.
Mm-hmm.
I was always able to retain it pretty good in class. Um, I was that kind of kid. I wasn't in like all advanced classes, but some of them. Like I was good in math, so I was with the real smart kids in math class. But then I was like in a normal English class. Like
Yeah.
I was that dude, growing up. So, I was always in the school, but not really at the same time. But I was like, a pretty good student, the whole nine. Um, but yeah, dude. I was kind of like a quiet kid,
Mm-hmm.
in school. Like if you were a teacher, you would have loved to have me. You know what I mean? Like I was that kid. Um,
I
I
was
was.
I
It
was the
was.
opposite. I was the loud one, if you can believe that.
I could believe that, dude. I could believe it. It's funny because when I hit high school, though, like I flipped, and people thought I went crazy. Like something happened my senior year, and I just all of a sudden started not to give a shit. But it took me
Yeah.
up until my senior year to do that. But all the way up, I was like a good kid, man. But yeah, dude, my child, dude, it's funny leading up to this. It
And
got me
and
thinking about my
and
child.
at any point, when you want to work, because I do want to know if you had any like religious background, that type of thing too, while you were a kid. So work that in here at some point too. Weave that into the story.
That's funny. It's funny you say that because that's what I was just gonna say, dude.
Cool.
Um, so I I grew up Roman Catholic, right? So my family's Italian. I'm Italian all the way down. Um, so I grew up Roman Catholic, and I think I was about 10 years old. Um, I became an altar boy. I was like an altar boy for like 4 years. So I was pretty acquainted with the Catholic Church and that whole thing, and um, had like religious training and stuff. In Catholicism, it's called like CCD or Catechism, where
Hmm.
like it was like every Monday night I had to go to like a religious class for like an hour. I did all that kind of stuff, but I mean, being an altar boy was interesting because I would sit there and I would listen, right? I'd pay attention. I'd listen to the scriptures. Oh, looking back, it's funny, Brian. Like I you think now like you can go to a whole Catholic mass and they'll just open the Bible and they'll like read a few scriptures,
Hmm.
right? And then the priest will get up, he'll talk about it a little bit. But most of the mass is mumbo jumbo ritual, right? I even remember thinking when I was a kid, now even more like, why don't we just like open the Bible and like read it and learn about it? Like we're
Yeah.
all here for an hour at church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You fucking read you read a couple passages And then we went through this whole ritual, and then, now looking back, I understand the whole ritual behind it, you know? And the balls of the Catholic Church, you're worshiping Jesus, apparently, but you got him up there hanging on a cross,
Hmm.
right? All bloody. It's like you're worshiping the guy's death, man.
Yeah, it's
But
fucking
anyway,
weird.
we can certainly get into that. But um, yeah, dude, I mean, it's funny, man. Like just thinking about it, you know, I think, Brian, I have like a great nostalgia for those times, dude. Especially now, the
Oh,
way
of
things are.
course,
Like I
man.
look back,
Oh man, of course. I had a really good time in my childhood. I mean, I hated school, and when I was in high school, I actually got kicked out of two different high schools. I was in three different high schools, three different sophomore years. Like, I fucking hated school, but I had a good time, like with my friends, and as a kid playing soccer and baseball and all that. Yeah, man, it was cool. It was pure, a lot more pure back then, I think. And who knows? I mean, I know
yeah,
the
dude.
world was obviously fucked up in the '80s as well, and we just didn't see it because we were kids. But I do think it's way crazier now, dude.
Well, dude, there was an innocence about it. There was an innocence, and we're the same age. We're pretty much the same age. Um, Brian, I think back about how people were back then. Like I remember their faces, just random people. Like I'm thinking about, different family reunions I was at, or like Little League, and the way the parents were, and just the way people interacted with each other, right? Um, just their whole vibe. It seemed to be more human. It seemed to be, now when I look back on it, like the society has changed so much since then. It's almost hard to imagine, you know. And I think our age, the way we are, kind of like in our mid 40s,
Hmm.
I think of it like this, like we watched the whole culture change right over top of us, right? So we're still we're old enough to remember the old way the world was,
Hmm.
but we're still young enough that we're like existing in this new fucking paradigm world that we're
Well,
in, right?
yeah, I mean, we in real time as young adults. I still consider us young. I know we're a little more middle aged. People would say whatever, but as young adults, we witnessed two completely world changing paradigm events with 9/11 and COVID. Like we saw the world shift twice in front of us, and both things obviously kind of pointing in the same direction as well.
Yeah, man, exactly. Two huge. It's funny you say that. 9/11 was an amazing paradigm shift. Um, all of it. I mean, the date, just even that 9/11 2001, and just the occult overtones, just with the date itself. Not even counting all the other crazy occult uh, uh basically evidence that you can see. Just the date alone is
Yeah,
so much, right?
yeah.
Just
So
it's the new millennium, because everyone thought 2000 is the first year of the millennium is 2001, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, and then the 9/11, whatever that date's associated with their weird gematria, or some say it might have been like Jesus's birthday. Who fucking knows what the number, why it's significant, but it's significant to them, right? And then looking back, the tower stood for 33 years.
Hmm.
Brian, at this point, it's quite obvious they built those towers to come down, bro.
Oh, dude.
Those
Well, yeah.
towers were built to come down,
This is what I've been talking about
right, dude?
for 12 years. This is what I've been talking about. They completely. That's the only reason they built them was to knock them down on that day, and it was just an all a big magic illusion all the way up to the point of taking them down on what was actually going on in there and how supposedly busy they were with people and all this. It was all a fucking facade, all a magic trick to play the entire world so they could endlessly go around. And I don't know what's real with different wars and whatnot, but I do think that certain people are bullied around a little bit, even though it's a world stage. So I do think they use these agendas to do that, like 9/11, and they just made it cool to just do whatever they want. And even if that's all just a complete facade, let's just say we never even did anything on any of these other Middle Eastern country soil or anything. Let's just, for the people that say that that doesn't even happen, right? Regardless, look at all the bullshit they pushed on the citizens here and in the name of security and all this bullshit. You know, that's when all this shit at the airport started, and scanners and TSA grabbing my fucking nuts and any type of fucking wiretapping and all this stuff that they want. We know they already do that shit anyways, but everybody's just okay with it. They're okay with people were becoming okay with torture, dude. It was okay to torture people. People were justifying torturing people as long as we kill them fucking sand niggas, right?
Well, yeah, man. Well, look at now. We have an entire society worldwide that tortures their children. They send them around to school and with muzzles on their faces.
Mm-hmm.
They've obscured the face of the children for years, um, basically interfering with their ability to communicate. I mean, yeah, dude, the torture is not off the table for these people. And, we see how they do it, Brian. It's a stepwise process, right? So they hit us, they push, 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 they ease off a little bit. It's funny, man, how when we look around at people, I think it might have to do with the human ability to adapt to trauma. Because when we look at these people, like, look now, Brian, it's like I look at people because they let up a little bit now with the whole CV bullshit. Um, it's like now everything's supposed to be forgotten over the last 2 years. It's supposed to
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
well,
yeah. It's
right? Well, live
ridiculous.
and let live. Well, I'm not forgetting ever.
No, I'm not
See?
forgetting either, dude. They can go fuck themselves with that. I mean, seriously,
Yeah,
they
dude.
scare the shit out of the entire world over something that's ridiculously doesn't even exist. I get chastised by family and other people for fucking, getting on airplanes and not wearing a mask and going and telling people to not live in fear. I'm endangering people and I'm going to kill them. You know what? You know what I haven't seen and none of my friends haven't seen? One of us unvaccinated people drop on the ground, but most of us have actually seen vaccinated people fall in front of us, including me. I've seen it happen twice now. I had to help one guy up off the floor. Many of us in our community have this story. These people are fucking delusional, dude. It's fucking insane, dude. I can't forgive, and
Yeah, dude.
man, man, it really, not to put a downer on things, but man, COVID really made me reflect on everything a lot different and see how really far people lost are and like how much more I really need to focus on what I'm doing because fuck, man. I mean, I get like, and we're gonna talk about these other topics later. Like, obviously, flat Earth, Mandela effect. More about 9/11. All this big stuff. You said you want to talk about the January 6th thing. So all sorts of directions that we're gonna go. But like, I could understand like how normies don't even have a flat Earth or a Mandela effect on their radar at all. But how do they go through COVID and not see the inconsistencies everywhere they go and the absurdness of what's being promoted as what's in safety and what's not? And you come to our restaurant, you got to wear a mask to the table, but then you can take it off and sit around everybody, even though it's supposedly going through the air and killing you. The COVID has fucking dinner manners, dude. Like, they don't have any fucking common sense at all. Like, it doesn't take researching into conspiracies to see that's but there's nothing on upstairs with these people, dude.
Brian, it's complete mind control, dude. It's complete mind control. Um, I think, Brian, this, it's funny when you go through your journey of truth and you get to a certain point, at least I'll speak for myself, where it almost becomes simple, right? The complexities become simple because what I see, Brian, is nothing less than dark magic.
Hmm.
These people are under a spell. I can sit here and talk coherently about psychology. I can talk about cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. I can talk about indoctrination and operant conditioning. But we could sit here and talk about it, we could spin our wheels and talk about it. But in the end, I'm coming to a conclusion, dude. This is dark magic, and their magic goes all the way back. We can see it. You look at Hermeticism,
Hmm.
alchemy. You look at the Kabbalah, the tradition of Kabbalah in the books of the Zohar. When we say magic, it's not like we're pulling that concept out of nowhere. Many of the ancient writings that we have and the things that people wrote about and preserved talk about their magic. So what else is this but magic? These people are under a dark spell. That's really what I think, Brian, because the way they're behaving um, gives evidence to that. Because, and Brian, I think the absurdity of the presentation actually strengthens their spell.
Hmm.
because as absurd as it looks for me and you, like for
Yeah.
people to think that COVID has dinner manners, that absurdity, or for people to be, let's say, walking in the park with face masks on or driving in the car by themselves with face masks on, which I still see people doing.
Hmm.
Um, that's nothing short of, well, like I said, some kind of spell.
It is a
And the
spell, dude,
absurdity
and
of
they
that
used it.
strengthens
We
the
know how they
spell.
did it, man.
The
They
abs
did it. They did it with the schools that they controlled the curriculum, and they did it with the TVs that's on everybody's wall, dude. It is a spell. Those TVs put people
yeah.
under a spell, dude. That's a spell.
Well, we know everything's frequency, Brian, right? When we really look at things, it breaks down the frequency, right? So when you present people with a certain type of frequency, Brian, they call TV programming.
Yeah.
That's another thing about their fucking magic, dude. They throw it in our face
Oh
because it
yeah.
strengthens their magic.
Yeah.
So you call it programming when you're programming somebody.
Hmm.
Think about that, man. It's unbelievable. It's just like even the term government. It literally
Control
means
the
mind
mind.
control.
Yeah, control the mind.
It's unbelievable, man. Government, I said this to somebody the other day. Government's not a noun, it's a verb. Government it means you're doing something. It's an action. You're controlling somebody's mind. They put it
Controlling
right in
your
their words.
mind, dude. Controlling your reality. So let's because we can go so deep into all this, and we're gonna. But let's back it up a little bit, and let's get to
Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah. Rein me in a little bit, dude.
let's go to the point of you starting your adulthood, getting out of school or whatever, what you did, and
So,
let's bring that up to when you first realized there was really something wrong in the world, whether it be the news was lying
okay.
about everything, or and then we'll hammer it in.
So, all right. So, yeah, dude, I was like a normal kid. I played sports. I played football, the whole thing. I was real in this, that kind of stuff. I was like into sports and stuff. So I went to college. I went to the University of Vermont, if you
Hmm.
know where that is.
Yeah,
It's up in kind of northern Vermont, in a town with a city called Burlington,
I know where that is.
and it was cool, man. Was that?
Oh, I know what Burlington, Vermont is for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where I went to school. So I lived there for 4 years, and that's kind of where I started to get my first adult experiences. It's kind of got into a lot of like psychedelic stuff, right?
Hmm.
That's when I first started to really delve into, maybe this world that's presented to us is not as it's presented, right? So that's why, typical kind of stuff of that time. If you know the jam band Fish, if you ever
Yeah.
heard of them,
Oh
I
yeah.
bet there's people,
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I had a couple of friends
They're
that would follow them around and all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. I was into them a little bit, but they were from that town of Burlington, right? They kind of sprouted up in the mid to late 80s. So by the time I was up there in the late 90s, they were big. Jerry Garcia had died. So the Fish kind of took over the mantle for the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
So I was up there during all that. So you can imagine, because Burlington was like the home base of the entire Fish culture. So I was up there for that. So obviously there's a lot of good, psychedelics going around there, and that's what sort of when I got, so I basically did, the whole gamut, LSD, shrooms, that kind of stuff. I was into ecstasy for a little bit. Interestingly enough, though, when I was there, I was less into that like Fish hippie culture, and I got more into like the underground techno culture.
Uh huh.
I was always like I was always the kind of person who always wanted to push it to the limit, right? So if we're partying and everybody is going, I would always be the last guy at the party. 7 a.m., the sun's coming up, I'm still there. Wanting to be like, no, let's go down to the lake. Like I always never wanted the party to stop. Like once I got into that mode and started to feel like that energy, um, it was just something that I really took to. So that's when I first started to really maybe experience again that the more, let's call it, supernatural aspects, right? So and,
Now,
and
had you
I don't really want to get into.
up to this point, have you had any supernatural experiences, ghost stories, or anything as a kid? I forgot to ask you that because that was a big part of my
Yeah, so when I
childhood.
was a kid, no ghost stuff, but I was the kind of kid, Brian, who I could like like I could walk into a room and like sense like the emotions of people. Like I was one of those kids where I could like feel people's emotions, right? So I
Yeah.
would walk in, like say my dad was pissed or whoever, a grandmom or just a random person, like a teacher. Like I'd walk into the room in the morning and I knew what the mood the teacher was in. Just I would like feel the vibe. But when you're young, um, you just don't know that that's different, you know? Like you don't know. You just think it's normal. You don't
Yeah.
even think anything of it. It just is
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But looking back on it, like I was that kid and I would say stuff to people, Brian, and like they'd look at me and they'd be like, "How did you know that?" Or they'd give some indication that I had identified some emotion in them. So I had like that kind of stuff going on. But once I started getting into like the psychedelic world, um, had experiences where if I went into them right now, they probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to people, but you know, just suffice it to say, interacting with beings and stuff and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of typical stuff, which is funny because, years later, so we're talking like in the late 90s, and years later, going back and talking to people, and once the internet got big, it's funny, Brian, because many of the experiences that I had on psychedelic, um, these psychedelic trips,
Yeah.
they correlated with other people's experiences, right? So we were having these same experiences,
Yeah.
seeing the same kind of things, and that's the kind of validation where, dude, that's obviously beyond coincidence, right? So if I see a certain type of entity that's very specific, um, and then many other people all around the world
Well,
describe that same experience,
I
what does
think
that say,
I
dude?
think we should go into a little detail about the entity that you saw or whatever. I think you're piquing everybody's interest. Let's not, let's go into it a little bit. What do we got?
Well, I mean, Brian, I mean, God, do I jump into total schizophrenia right off the jump here? So I'll give you a couple. So interestingly enough, the first time I did, there's a drug back then. You can't find it anymore. It was called Salvia divinorum,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure some people know about it. It's like a Central American plant. It's like related to sage or something like that. Anyway, back in the day, you can go to like a head shop and you can get it would like have extract, right? It was like 20x, so it'd be like 20 fucking times extract. And you're supposed to hit it and you take a big hit from a water bong. So the first time I did it, um, I was just a kid, right, Brian? So I didn't know what to do. It was me and my buddy and his girlfriend was there. So
How
I
old were
sit
you?
down and they were like afraid.
Are you like 15, 16? Like, what are we talking
No,
about?
no, no, no. I'm like early 20s at this
Oh,
point.
okay.
This is like early 20s,
Okay,
you
cool.
know. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I was out of school and stuff. So I get down and I packed a bowl real thick. And I was always, like I said, I was always adventurous, right? So I take the biggest hit you could ever imagine. Brian, when I say within 5 seconds, a tunnel opened up, right? Like a tunnel, like a vortex, right? It opened up and it started like feeling like it was like sucking me in. And out of the vortex came two gremlins that were like hanging off my
Dude,
face, dude, right?
that's a bad trip, dude. I would not want to be part of that, dude.
Bro, but the thing about it is, it's very quick. So if anybody's ever done it, like you go into a very intense psychedelic experience, and it only lasts like a minute or two or three or four. You know what I mean? And then you start to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember it distinctly. They can, I would say gremlins or goblins, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so I never told anybody. But then, like I said, years later, I went online and I started to look, and other people on that same Salvia
Mm-hmm.
Divinirum were seeing the same fucking gremlins, dude.
Yeah.
So when I tell people that, like, and if you look into a lot of the DMT experiences that people talk about, they again talk about seeing these similar entities. People talk about the machine elves or the clockwork elves. That's a big one. So it's fucking weird, Brian. Like, you know how we always talk about how crazy this place is, like movie Earth, what kind of fucking reality just starts shifting, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I wrote down 20 Mandela effects that I want to get into, dude. Then they're all legit, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of reality can do that? Well, if we're talking about a reality that you pierce the veil and you're seeing fucking goblins, gremlins, elves, I know this shit sounds crazy to like some people, but this is the real shit, dude. So right behind the veil, you got a bunch of crazy elves. If you look into the ancient stories about the Nephilim that are depicted in the Bible as, the fallen, and they basically took the daughters of man and they had offspring and they were called the Nephilim. There's a lot of stories in the Jewish traditions, that these once the Nephilim, these giants died, their spirits were disembodied and they stayed here. And there's a lot of lore that goes back to like the archetype of the clown face with the blood, with the red lips and shit, was supposed to be an archetype of these disembodied Nephilim spirits, basically demons. Um, and so you take these commonalities that people are experiencing on these psychedelic trips, and you combine them with some of the stuff that we know from a lot of these ancient writings, and we get a story of a reality that is very bizarre. It's actually fucking really bizarre. You know, people like to think of the old man with the beard, the gods on his throne, and they have this like construct, this indoctrinated construct of what really spirituality is or God. In reality, it's much fucking different. Brian, if you look into things like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, when they talk about the bardos, it's basically this in between world that you're in right after you die. They talk about weird shit, dude. Weird entities, fucking jester clown like things that are fucking with you. And again, it's just Tibetan Book of the Dead, right? For what it's worth. Um, so we're looking at a reality that is so strange and so hidden and obscured from us that it almost boggles the mind, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, absolutely, totally does.
Yeah. So and there's other experiences I had that a couple of them I want to keep to myself, but
Yeah, that's cool.
um, because they would sound too crazy if I said it.
So
You tell people,
these type of experiences, and then one later on in your life is what kind of sparked you into really realizing that this world wasn't what was presented, and then what did you do from there? Did you look into more supernatural things? Did you look into conspiracies? And at this point in your life, also, what was your take on politics? Did you believe in politics, or did you already get rid of that a long time
yeah,
ago?
it's funny, Brian, because so I said I went to school in Vermont, and originally my first time around at school, I ended up going back years later, but I was a political science major.
Oh
So
wow.
I was studying like, so I was way into politics. I remember at the time, dude, it was when Clinton was going through his impeachment and the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, dude, and I was all bought in, man. I was bought in as it was totally real. Um, so yeah, but but now I look back on it and I was able to get, now I have a pretty good understanding of political theory and thought, political philosophy, at least what's presented to us, which is funny because it's all bullshit, which is hilarious
I
when I think
always
about it.
saw
But
through it, dude. I never bought into politics. It just never made any sense to me. Thank God, you know. I mean, I bought into almost everything else they
yeah.
told us in school, like we all did. But the politics, never bought into two-party politics. I just never thought that made any sense at all.
Oh yeah, man. Like my family was way into it, like at holidays they'd all be debating politics around the table, It was just something that was normal for me. Just something that I grew up into, right? Like everything. Um, Most of my family was conservative. My parents were a little bit more on the liberal side. But yeah, Brian, I was a total liberal everything, man. Voted for Obama, voted for Al Gore. Like I was that
When
guy,
when did
man.
you shake that?
Um,
When was the last time you believed in politics and voted? What year was it? And what made you realize, well, this is I'm done with
It was
this.
over a decade. So the way I started getting the truth and maybe starting to veer off the reservation, so to speak, was right around, I would say like 13 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
well, the first thing was in like 2004. My first thing that piqued my interest was when I read that book on Bin Laden, and I was like, wait, he was CIA trained? What the fuck is that all about, right? So that was when I first started to think, like, what's going on here? But life goes on. But right around all that 2012 shit,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started getting into really into stuff. That's when YouTube was really popping.
Yep.
So I started off into that thing, right? So I was all about, there's a binary sun. I had this whole, the whole
Oh
Nibiru
yeah.
thing that was
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
around there and Planet X.
Yeah.
That's kind of when I was first coming into like stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because they talk about a binary sun and they present it in their stupid heliocentric model.
And
But
at
now
this
we
point,
realize now we're all,
at this point, did you
what's
still
up?
did you still believe in the moon landing at this point when you were into the Nibiru stuff?
Yeah, man. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I started to question that probably around 2013, right? But when I first got into it, yeah, because
But
I
yeah,
bought in. I was
yeah,
still
yeah,
bought
yeah.
in,
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like, continue with the 2012 and the Nibiru stuff because I never really bought into that. But um,
Oh my God,
so
dude. I
it's
was
interesting
so
to me.
into that at the time, dude.
Yeah,
You know what it is, Brian? Because I think there's a lot of truth in those stories because it's all related to like the Anunnaki and the Enki, all this stuff and ancient, uh, all these ancient structures, right? Um, these geolithic structures and all that stuff. So I was way into it. But what they do is, and they present it through their model. So they talk about the idea that we have a twin dead sun, like a binary sun. But look at the model now we see with
hmm
more of the flat Earth kind of stuff, where we talk about a black sun, right? Like a second sun that
yeah,
might be maybe on the flip side of the plane potentially. This is all theoretical shit, but um, so think about it. Like all these cultures did talk about a second sun,
yeah.
but yet, what did they do? They take the story. It's the ultimate gatekeeping, and then spin it. So
Of
present the
course,
story that we have through humanity, but spin it through their model.
of
Oh, it's a
course.
binary. It's a binary solar system where we have a dark star, and that's how it was presented. That there was like a dark star. They called it Nemesis, um, and that there was basically like a second solar system that was entwined with ours. That every 5,000 or 26,000 years, depending on who you talk to, that this twin sun would come in, and it would basically this twin solar system would come in, and then so with this dead sun was its planets, and one of them was Nibiru, and these other ones, and they would relate it to the all kinds of ancient stories with destruction and cataclysm. And so they painted that whole picture. But again, it was the whole, and a lot of that stuff then, Brian, turned into the stuff you see on like Ancient Aliens, like all that stuff they
Yeah,
present with,
yeah. And I did,
that.
I did
So
used to like that show at first. Like in very very early days of me starting to question some things, I did like that, but that didn't last longer than like a year for me because then I got into the moon landing pretty fast and realized this is all bullshit. But um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah, dude. So I was way,
yeah? So how did you get from that towards questioning NASA and space? Was it just because it was all in front of you on YouTube, or
well, yeah. So it's funny. So yeah, I was into that for a while, and I saw my first. So for anybody out there who doesn't know me, like flat Earth is like here's what I'll say about flat earthers. We know each other when we encounter each other. It's funny. Like I can meet somebody or see somebody and you could figure out where they are in 2 seconds, you
mm-hmm.
know. Um, and I'm a flat earther's flat earther, if that makes sense, right? Um, but my entry into flat Earth was a little slower than some people's, because I was trying to reconcile the flat Earth information with my pre-indoctrinated paradigm, right? I remember seeing the first videos in like 2015, the early ones. It was like we could see too far. The Earth is flat, and I didn't discount it, but I said, "Wow." But in my head, I'm trying to work it out, right, Brian? Like, well, how's it
Mm-hmm.
flat if we're in a solar system in the sun, right? So you're
Yeah,
taking the fucking flat Earth
and
and you're
putting in their
sticking it
model. Yeah.
into their model, right? And I remember saying to somebody in, I was like 2017, I was starting to come out and talk to people and say, I think the Earth might be flat. And I remember, it's funny now thinking about it, but I was explaining to the person where, well, I said, look, if you take a quarter, right, and you fucking spin a quarter like a top, I said, look, it looks like a globe, right? That's how I'm rationalizing it in my head, right? It's, oh, it's flat, but it's still spinning like a fucking wobbly top. You know what I mean, dude? Like that's where I was
Fucking
in like
hanging on to
2017.
that thing, just hanging on for dear life to that fucking
Yeah,
thing.
man, because you don't realize it, and that it's, bro, I can go off in a million directions, dude. I really can, man. But I'll save that thought. But anyway, it was right around, I came in the flat Earth right when Owen Benjamin came in.
Hmm.
And that's how I mark it. So wasn't right early, but it wasn't right late because he might have been at that second or third Flattoberfest. I remember, I saw he like came and he performed or whatever. And that was the year he kind of
It was
accepted.
Flat Earth International Conference. It wasn't Flattoberfest. So
Oh, okay. All right.
it
Oh,
might
oh,
have
okay.
been. I'm
All right.
thinking
That's
it
what it
was
was.
20. Probably it was 2019. I'm thinking it might have been 2018 though. I might have it mixed up.
I think it was 2018. I was
Yeah.
thinking about it earlier today. It's funny. I think pretty sure it was 2018. So whenever he must have started coming into it in like 2017, going into 2018. So I kind of was doing it with him because I remember the moment, Brian. It's funny, man. I remember the exact moment where, dude, it all hit me and everything, my paradigm just shattered. And it was Owen, man. And I love Owen. I mean, I don't listen to him now and stuff, but only because I'm into a lot of stuff. But I was at that time I was listening to him a lot. And when he said, I'll never forget it, dude. He was talking about, well, in the model they present us, not only are we orbiting the sun, but the orbit's elliptical.
Hmm.
And that's when it hit me. I said, if it's elliptical, that means we're talking about acceleration and deceleration.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
If it's an elliptical
Well,
orbit, you're
yeah.
going to be accelerating and dec. You
And
can't. So then you
people
don't have
can't
the
they can't
constant.
use that constant motion argument anymore. Why you don't feel the Earth moving?
Bingo, exactly. And that was the moment, dude. And that's when my world just fucking collapsed at that moment because I realized at that moment, wow, this is real, and it's not just the earth is flat, it's all the implications that go along with that. That not only did they create a model and present a paradigm to me, but then right away I was smart enough, like most people are, if they have the courage to open their mind to realize, wow, the deception that goes in to creating that model and propagating it on people. And that's when it all hit me at once, dude. And that's when I had my like quintessential flat earth moment where you go, "Oh shit." And that was the one. That was the one. It was the and then everything right then I just picked it up right from that. Once I allowed myself to step out of my paradigm, to empty my cup and really, really use logic and
Hmm.
look at the world as it really is, it came to me real quick, and then, it's funny, Brian, and I'm sure this happens to a lot of people. Once that moment happened, you have a particular situation in your life when that happens. Because at the time, I had my career, I had my whole everything, man. I had time and money invested in my education. I'm working in a career making good money. And now I'm this new person in this old life.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Brian, I used to say to people, we sacrifice things for the truth. Like, the implication saying like I sacrificed my old life to embrace the truth. But I don't even think that's what it is anymore, dude. Once we start to resonate with that truth, we then all automatically um, vibrate away
Yeah,
from
dude. We're
that
we're
old life and
we're
into the new
improving.
life.
We're not downgrading and making a sacrifice. I mean, we're improving, and it seems like heavy sacrifice at first, and it certainly sucks being disconnected from certain people, and even when it comes to family and stuff. But ultimately, it's the better thing for you in the long run. If people are gonna try and hold you in that fake matrix. Hey, why don't we take a quick break so I can fill my coffee? Use the bathroom, and when we come back, we'll start right again at Flat Earth and your awakening moment and what you did after you realized what you realized. And we'll get into it a lot. I really want to talk a lot about this topic with you. I know you're very passionate about it and knowledgeable about it. I really love when, like the other night, you come in and kind of laid out some shit to the guy with the quantum shit. Like I really, I do appreciate
Brian,
your
I
mind.
live I live for those moments, dude. I live for those moments, man. Um, but yeah, yeah, let's take a break,
All
dude.
right, so we'll
All right,
start right where
everybody.
we
See you
were.
soon.
Your start into looking into flat Earth and where you went from there. That's what we'll pick up. All right.